Salutations. Voodoo here with another $420 budget build for the month of July. Ah, sweet summertime. The soft yellow glow of sunshine beaming through every window, the smell of fresh cut grass, the warm whispering breeze, and gentle quiet hum of the crickets, and long starry nights, those timeless romantic evenings, playing Pokemon Go with your sweetheart. Get out and soak up some summer. Then, after you guys break up, you're nearly arrested for trespassing, your legs are too sore, you're sunburned, badly insect bitten, and sick of reality. Join me and escape into the cool, soft glow of a gaming PC. Grab a cup of tea, max out the air conditioning, kick back, relax, and game on, my friends. Now, this machine should be good for 1080p gaming with all current titles, and comes in right around $400. Let's get to it. Alright, first off, let's start with our CPU. I've selected the AMD Athlon X4 880K. Now, this is the newest processor release from AMD. This came out in 2016 and does feature the new Wraith cooler, which is actually very silent and pretty efficient. Now, this is a 4-core or a quad-core CPU with a 4.2 gigahertz boost frequency, and this does require a discrete GPU. There is no built-in graphics on the chip. It has support for 2133 memory with 4 megabytes of L2 cache and is in the FM2 socket with a 95 watt TDP. Now, overall, this processor is pretty good. If you just need a basic 4-core gaming solution for $98, this thing is really hard to beat. And I would put it up there probably with an i5, maybe a hyper-threaded i3, really depends on the game and the workload. But for $98, this thing is a steal. Alright, on to the motherboard. Let's go with an ASRock FM2A68M. Now, this is a MicroATX motherboard built on the Bolton D2H chipset, and it does support DDR3 memory up to 2400 megahertz, and I believe it's 32 gigabytes total, but we have a slight restriction with only 2 available RAM slots, so keep that in mind. Now, this board has 1 PCI Express slot, so we won't be doing any Crossfire SLI, but with a budget build like this, you probably don't really need it anyway. We've got our basic Realtek ALC662 audio at 5.1 channels, a PS2 connector, 2 USB 3.0 connectors, 4 USB 2.0 connectors, and unfortunately, only 1 CPU fan connector, so you may need to buy a fan splitter if you're going to go ahead and deck this thing out with a lot of fans. Alright, this board has some pretty decent reviews. It's not too bad looking. I'm not a big fan of the brown PCB, but it'll look pretty decent in the rest of the build since everything's pretty much black anyway. The power delivery system is a little iffy. You might have some problems on higher tiered cards, but if you stay within the limitations of this processor anyway and stick with like a 970 or below, you'll have no problems at all. Cooling is adequate, and overall it's a pretty good board, and for $40 it's a great deal. Alright, now for our memory, this is always the easiest part of any budget build. Just find the speed that you can afford in the amount that you need and get the cheapest thing you can find. Now, Team Dark is one of my favorite companies. This RAM is tried and true. I've owned it for years. It overclocks very well. You can push it to 1866 with hardly any difference at all in temperature. And for $54, you can pick up 2 8GB sticks with a timing of 99924 and a cast latency of 9. This RAM should be pretty responsive and won't slow our system down at all. Plus 16 gigs is plenty adequate for any game out currently and should be okay for a year or two. For $54.99, you really can't go wrong. Now, for storage with this build, we actually are afforded the opportunity to have 2 hard drives. We have a Silicon Power Slim S55, 120 gigabyte, 2.5 inch solid state drive. This is your standard TLC controller, so it might not last forever, but it's got pretty decent reads and write speeds. And for only $34.99, we really want to get this as a boot drive. Now, for our second hard drive, I've selected the Western Digital Caviar Blue. If you look online, the Caviar Blue has absolutely amazing reviews. This thing is fast, it's cheap, We're getting 1 terabyte of storage on a 7200 3.5 inch internal hard drive for only $47. Alright, let's move on to the good stuff, the GPU. I'm going to go with the EVGA GeForce GTX 950. Now this is the For the Win edition with the ACX 2.0 cooler, and it's a pretty impressive graphics card for the price of $100. You get 2 gigs of DDR5 memory with a core clock of 1.2 gigahertz and a TDP of only 90 watts. And this, unlike some of the new NVIDIA offerings, does support SLI. So if you want to grab another one, you can actually get this thing probably to about VR ready, although you might need a better processor to be able to handle SLI with no stuttering. Still, I always recommend with a budget build, just stick with one card. SLI or Crossfire or whatever you want to call it, it's going to be a major pain in the ass. Now we've got 2 gigabytes of 128-bit GDR5 with a boost clock of all the way to 1405 megahertz, but you can expect to overclock that to 1500 with no problems. We have 768 CUDA cores, which is not a lot of CUDA cores, but you have to remember that stream processors and CUDA cores are not utilized in the exact same way, so this still offers pretty good performance on par with a R7 370 and does really well in most modern games, as I'll show you in the graphs in a little bit. But like I said, for $109, this is a great budget card and will even outperform an R7 370 in a lot of instances. Plus, right now you get $100 of in-game value for Warframe and World of Warships. I don't know a lot about World of Warships, but $100 worth of in-game money has to be a lot of stuff, so that's kind of cool. Plus, you get a free game to try your graphics card out with. Alright, on to the case. We're going to go with the Rosewill SRM01 MicroATX mini tower case. Now this is one of my all-time favorite cases. I own several of these, and this thing is just awesome. Normally, I stay away from Rosewill. They can have shoddy construction, but this thing, much to my surprise, is really well built. It's lightweight, and it's just the right size. It even has this kind of cool faux aluminum front. It's like a textured plastic on the front that doesn't look too bad. Now this is a MicroATX mini tower. It's got 2 3.5 inch drive bays and 2 2.5 inch drive bays, with an 80mm pre-installed rear exhaust fan and a 120mm front and side exhaust fan. It's weighing in at 7.8 pounds and measures 13 by 7 by 13 inches. Now this might not be the most expensive case, it doesn't have a lot of features, but it is very well made. Like I said, it looks awesome, it's nondescript, it's very low-key, it's very stylish. I like the all black, and we can fit a pretty decent sized graphics card inside this thing, so we'll have no problems with our GTX 950, and maybe even a GTX 1070 if you want to upgrade in the future. For $19.99, it's an awesome case. I totally recommend it. It's one of my all-time favorites. Alright, on to the final piece, our power supply. Let's go with an EVGA 100B1. This is a 500 watt bronze certified power supply with greater than 85% efficiency. It has a 120mm sleeve bearing fan and also has 40 amps on its single 12-volt rail. Now EVGA makes really good power supplies, especially with their low end. You can usually pick up their 430 watt or 500 watt for a really good price. And most systems these days, you really don't want to go with a 600 or a 700 anyway, not unless you're with a high tier graphics card. You're not going to want to use the power, you're wasting money, and you can use that on a GPU or storage or something else. So for $29.99 after rebate, this power supply is just what we need. 500 watts is actually a little bit of overkill, but you do want to leave some room for overclocking, and maybe an RX 480 or an AMD graphics card could end up pulling that much wattage anyway. $29.99, this is a great power supply. Alright, that brings our grand total to just over $400. Now this system should be pretty capable. If we run on over here to CPU benchmarks, we can see that our Athlon X4 has a rating of 5,581, which is only beat out by the FX 6300 6-core. If we head on over to Game Debate, we can quickly see that the 880K with its 4 cores at 4.2 GHz, should have no problem with most modern titles, although you may have to play on high to medium settings. I'm expecting 60 frames per second in Overwatch or Doom 4 with no problems. Now, our aging Maxwell GPU is still showing some pretty respectable numbers here, as it's fine for Battlefield, Overwatch, FIFA, Doom, Watch Dogs, Forza, just about any game out right now. You might have a little bit of problem with the 2 GB VRAM limitations, but you can always turn settings down, and in medium to high settings will be fine for a lot of users, especially at this price point. Well, alright guys, there we have it, another awesome $420 build. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment below if you want to keep seeing stuff like this. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I will see you next time.